Carried. I'd like a motion to adjourn from our regular meeting.
Second.
Motion second, we adjourn from our regular meeting. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, thank you. We are going to start a 5-minute, 2-minute, 3-minute, go ahead.
3-minute
Recess for anybody who needs that before we start this work
How
session.
long is this gonna last, you think?
I'm not sure. Dean is saying, I'm not.
Unless you have a lot of questions, I don't plan on talking a lot.
All right.
Dean Mr. Dean, you've got this today. How are you, sir?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for this opportunity. Right quick, you know what you have before you. This is a half-acre piece of land. It kind of sits behind 65 Millard Farmer Industrial Boulevard. Mr. Dollar is interested in acquiring this piece, which would involve a plat, rezoning it from its now commercial status to heavy industrial, which is also the zoning of the adjacent properties, and using it to additional storage space for his product and his company. The Planning Commission did discuss this item at their meeting on August 13th. They agreed with the conditions that we listed, which is basically to have a 15-foot landscape strip along the two west pieces, and the applicant was agreeable to that. Including that if needed, that when they get down there and start doing some clearing, that they may need to augment that 15-foot buffer. Will be any additional plantings that would happen as part of the process. They did vote 5-0 to recommend it to you with a favorable recommendation when it comes back to you for the public hearing on the 24th. But that's essentially what we're talking about this afternoon. The applicants are here. I'm here if you have any more questions about the nature of this rezoning petition.
Questions, council?
I do have, this is the one where they have all the containers, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you want a 15-foot buffer, and here's my concern, drove by there the other day, and how high is this guy, maybe I'm missing it, allowed to stack those things? Because there was like,
So
there's
the
no
city-
way that you can even put trees in front to camouflage that, so
Right. So
a
we
buffer
current-
to me does little to camouflage anything. That's why I'm asking, what was the recommendation on height?
Well, there wasn't any, because the city does not currently have a height recommendation as far as stacking material product. So there wasn't any sort of recommendation on that. It was just basically to maintain an adequate buffer to screen as best as possible the view of the units from Millard Farmer Industrial Boulevard.
So he could go as high as he wants, is that what you're saying?
Theoretically, that's correct. We do not have a height
So
limitation.
what do we do to stop that?
You would have to ask the city to address that through an ordinance amendment.
Well, there has to be some, in that industry, there has to be some safety
you can address-
regulation about stacking containers.
Well, I don't know.
I-
The
I-
other-
you wanna address
He's
that?
got
I'm
five,
just guessing,
he's got 5 high right now.
yeah. If the applicant
You want to come forward and address that
is,
question?
in your industry of stacking containers, is there a standard for the regulations?
It's not regulated. I mean, the stack rating, as far as their structural integrity goes, is based on them being loaded to grossing 68,000 pounds and stacking 9 high. That's just for loading on a vessel, so they, maintain integrity. As far as just empty stacking goes, the equipment that we have at our disposal will stack 5 high, is their max stacking height. I don't know of any 5 high stacks we have currently. I think everything on the yard currently is 4.
How many feet would be 5 stacked?
That would be, a little better, 40, almost 40, will be 9'6" times 5 is what a high cube.
9'6"
50.
times 5,
Almost 50 feet.
Almost 50 feet. 45 feet,
that's close to 50, yeah.
yeah, close.
Yeah, because our height is
Say again?
45, our height is 45 in certain buildings, it's like you said, 45. So they can stack as technically taller than we allow buildings to be.
Right.
And I've seen them in other places, like the Port of Savannah, where they are really high, so I get what you're going to.
It's not, I mean, I appreciate what you do in the business, but I'm driving by there, I mean, to me, it's, when I look at it, I go, holy smoke, man, that just doesn't look appealing to the eye. I mean, they're stacked back there, there's just, if you could do 3 and do some landscaping in there or something, but it's just, you're just looking at containers, that's it. And that, to me, aesthetically, or pleasing to the eye, or, I'm sorry, it just doesn't look good.
I have a question. Are they all empty? Do you keep only empty storage?
That's correct.
So if a fire or some other, I'm just thinking of the fire department, if we ever had to respond to something over there, I mean, that's high. That's why we have our height limit.
Well, they're not gonna burn, but
Well, if, vandals, I don't know, who knows what. You never know.
I would like to see something where we take it down to, the max would be on those stack would be anywhere, would be 3 would be ideal, because now you're taking it down from a sight line when you drive by. I'm sure that's the purpose of why you want to buy land, so you can stack some more and go 5 high back there, right?
Currently we're stacking 4 high, but yeah, that would be the purpose, just so we have more room for operation.
You aren't restricted now what you have as far as how you stack.
That's the
No,
point.
sir.
There's no restriction.
That's what I'm saying, on his present piece of property, there's no restriction.
So, well, my
Are
point
you-
is, let's make it restricted.
I mean, are you willing to agree to a stipulation of a stack of no more, a maximum of 3 on this particular 4.8 acre, or 0.48 acres?
On that specific piece,
Yes.
I mean, we could look at that, I guess.
Or if we let them extend it out on the entire property, no higher than 3, just kind of, what you acquire then becomes the overflow for everything you have already for, and potentially 5 high.
It's everything that's up front that's stacked.
That's what I'm saying, so it would move it more towards the back.
I mean, just take a drive by and take a look at it.
Oh, I see it every day. I mean,
That's, what are your
you
thoughts?
can't miss it.
What are your,
Same as yours,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, if I had to down stack my whole yard, I'd be better off just not even owning the property, because I would have less
So we can
capacity.
modify that though, right?
I'm sorry?
I'm getting message here
Yeah,
that
a
it's
comment
zoned,
that
it's
the
zoned.
comment that I made, it is zoned industrial, so industrial standards are certainly different than what you may be used to seeing on, as far as retail, commercial standards. That's why it looks the way it does, it's zoned industrial. Everything out in that general area, other than a couple parcels, is zoned industrial. You know, what's the old saying, cat kinda got out of the bag?
Yeah, well, it goes
How do we
back to
get the
when it
cat
was,
back in the bag, then, that'd be the case.
it goes back to when they named it Millard Farmer Industrial Boulevard. That's exactly what happened, and they wanted industrial. Well, this was before the city had anything else, and I know the history on it. I wasn't sitting in this seat, but I know the history on it. It was when Joe Norman was mayor, and they wanted an industrial section, and they zoned it industrial. That's exactly what happened, and this is what we've got. But this is an indication too of, you know, we've had the conversation recently about when something is brought in for a rezoning, that we have a plan, that, you know, what's the use gonna be, and, you know, typically you say, well, it's zoned industrial, they can use it for anything in the industrial classification. Well, this is an example of, we don't like what's in there, and so,
Well, I have a question.
sure.
Because, you know, we're talking about the heights and other stuff. I'm not familiar enough with the property to know the topography. I don't know if that back piece is lower than the rest of it or higher or whatever. So I guess my question is because the part in the front, which we're not necessarily talking about, is closer to the street, and that's where the eyesore issues are, is if there could be higher stacking in the back, profit for lower stacking in the front, to get that,
Now, well,
still with a height limit, no
I'm telling you,
doubt.
with the topography of that land, it's like, it slopes a little bit, but not much, and it's flush with the road. So it's not like there's a level like this. I mean, he's able to stack. He's got some stacked over here, but he's got right behind his office is where you see, I don't know how many are stacked highs. It's visible. 3 would be better than what is there now, but the topography and going back is not going to make any difference as to where you could stack them higher. You just see higher in the back.
I mean,
You're
that's
not
a
gonna
common
disappear.
tool used in architecture, is to put the highest part of the building in the center of the
I mean,
property.
but
so
this
that
is not
it
a building.
becomes- But it's massing, very much so, like that from a visual standpoint, from the way you see it. So I'm asking to see if having lower stacking limits in front with the part that's along, that you keep seeing behind the building, the 3 there in exchange for maybe 4 in the back. So that it's farther away and tucked behind this other industrial building.
Well,
with
but
the
he's-
screen.
he-
So those are the things I've just,
But-
since that's the problem.
I understand what you're saying, but he's not restricted now. That would be a self-restriction on him. His property is zoned so that he can stack 5 high.
As high as he wants.
Yeah, so you're asking him to impose something on the property he already owns to get what? I mean, Put
To
word-
get us to rezone that piece of property.
well, it's got to have been rezoned in the past from industrial to the CGN. I don't remember when it was.
It was, when they put around the pool and, or the pool, Callaway Pool and Fireplace.
Right, sure.
They resigned it for that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
question, I was unsure when I looked at the map, but what's the street frontage in feet of Millard Farmer that this proposed property has?
Millard Farmer it's right up Millard Farmer.
It's the whole, I mean,
Well, the footage from the street to where
Just
that
the
property
length
line
of-
starts,
how much frontage on Millard Farmer Boulevard, Industrial Boulevard does this proposed property have?
Doesn't appear to have any.
It doesn't have,
It's behind another business.
Yeah, the
that's what confused me on the address. So what is,
It's the back triangle,
Let
is
me go
that
back
right?
to this.
so,
It's just the triangle.
but it doesn't face the, yeah, that's what confused me. I was
So
like,
what you're looking at here
how do you give it
is,
that address?
so this is 65 Millard Farmer, and
Yeah.
it connects this piece back, it's one piece. And it's just this triangular piece, this little less than half an acre piece he's interested in acquiring. And the survey shows how it would break out. This line does not exist currently at the bottom. But if they were to later at some point subdivide it, this would be a new property line. This line would go away, would be combined with this other property that Mr. Dollar also owns.
He wants to combine it with the one,
To the east, right here.
How
Where-
wide is
where is
that?
the current
How wide is the
property?
connecting point?
Well, it looks like two properties in there.
I thought it was that other one.
It's so
Go back.
confusing.
So this is the
Mayor,
industrial
I
here.
think in answer to your question, all right, Works Industrial Boulevard, the city of Newnan bought all that, all right,
Okay.
including part of this property that we're talking about today.
Okay,
About, if you see the, kind of the line where it says ILT and then you see the red. All right, the city, this is what the mayor was referring to. The city bought this from the original property owner there to develop an industrial park. Because at that time, it was before Headley bought the property down. Here, the city had no industrial property being developed. So they bought all that, zoned it industrial, sold it all off. Now, because of what's happened and what the city has done, some of those industrial pieces, if you think about it, the school system now owns some of those properties, and so they're off the digest. A dialysis company went in, got that piece rezoned right next door to the transfer station, which is an odd mix. All right, the little red pieces were originally zoned for industrial. There were some developers that came in at that point and wanted to put some commercial uses that were not part of the uses in an industrial zone. So at that point, the council sitting at that point zoned those commercial. This little piece was owned by that one and was just zoned commercial. So you can see how it's already surrounded by the industrial, but because it was part of that. Well, then, I can't remember what went in, but some in between the two reds came back and rezoned that back to industrial. And so that's why you've got the little hodgepodge that's going on. But originally, all that was done and owned by the city and sold off to developers. City went in, put in Works Industrial Boulevard, all the infrastructure, and then sold off the lots for industrial development.
okay.
So that's why it looks the way it looks.
If you understand, somebody tell me, I want to just leave that map up there, you tell me exactly what your piece of property now, which pieces of property you're talking about. This is his
This is our entrance off of Wolfboro at the light, and then we own this lot that attaches to it, and then also this piece off of 132 Works Industrial. Yes, sir. You don't own that? Actually, we just bought that. Okay, this is owned industrial. It is.
what's there now?
This piece.
He wants the piece, he wants the piece in the back.
It's behind here, it's continuing.
Okay, that helps. I could not tell from that map either.
For a point of reference, the little bitty piece that you see in red down at the bottom,
Yeah,
that's where the realty office used to be.
yeah, yeah.
Right up against the industrial. And so that was part of what was originally owned.
Okay. Well, I don't like the stacking either, but it's surrounded by industrial, and it doesn't face the
Okay, we've
street.
got several
So
conversations
it's
going.
kind of landlocked, he's just expanding
We need to have one.
what he already has.
That's what I finally figured out.
And so I feel like, even though I prefer not to see the stacking, I feel like this request does fit, in my opinion, what's surrounding, and it doesn't diminish the area.
Well, I have a question about that. Now, I'm looking at the yellow, that's residential.
Yeah, but
So you got residential
But
back
there's
abutting
industrial next to it
industrial,
already.
which is usually usually you have something as a buffer between the industrial and residential.
But remember, that was a rezoning too.
Uh,
That originally was office and commercial, what is the Braymore development, and then it was rezoned to residential not too long ago.
That was part of the problem. The yellow was commercial and council, and the industrial was already developed, which doesn't require buffers. Council then rezoned the yellow to, residential, but didn't require the residential developer to buffer it, so there are no buffers.
So
you've
if we
already
walk
got
out,
industrial next to to the residential up at the top in section 170.
Okay, so if we approve this, he can stack as high as he wants to go all over that property in that additional piece, and that you're okay with all that?
All he can do is that triangle. If we rezone, he can already do it on everything else.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying. So we can't do anything about that.
And Paul, exactly, I don't like the stacking, but in theory, he could buy any of those other properties already zoned that way and not even come here and
Yeah,
start stacking. So
it's that way, but yeah, I get it.
I'm okay with the
I am blessed.
yeah.
Well, we're not voting today, so, anybody else? Any other questions? Dean, anything?
No, the only other thing is just, without getting too far out, it's just this one little half-acre piece, and to the point, it's already been mentioned, this is heavy industrial, it's allowed heavy industrial, everything around except for this one little 0.48 acre piece. The stacking concerns are limited somewhat by the ability of the equipment they have to offload those containers and put them on, but currently we do not have a height restriction on container units. There is a building height restriction in the zoning, which I think is 45 feet. So you can make it equal to, but not to exceed, the building height allowed in the heavy industrial zoning district.
Have we had any comments from any of the adjacent property owners?
The adjacent property owners came to the planning commission, but they were actually concerned about the back of the school system's property, not this one. They saw a bunch of debris, junk, derelict things just hanging out in the back, and it was actually the school system's property and not this particular property. So once they realized that, they said, oh, okay. They had no other comments.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. There's no action on this. This is just a work session. We're not, if nothing else for the good of the order, I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. We adjourn from the work session. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Thank you for being here today.